The prophets were numerous. The first of them was Adam.
لوط
Peace be upon
إسماعيل
Peace be upon
إسحاق يعقوب
Peace be upon
يوسف صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Prophet Dawood, he was washed and he was shrouded, and when that was done, the sun rose and the sun was very hot. And Suleiman, he said to the birds, shade David. And so the birds, they did so. They shaded him. Alayhi salatu wassalam. It was said that Prophet Dawood, alayhi salatu wassalam, he was 100 years old when he died. وَوَرِثَ سُلَيْمَانُ دَاوُودَ. And Solomon, amongst all of his brothers, became a prophet and a king like David. And Suleiman, alayhi salatu wassalam, as it was said, he was only 12 years old. And despite his youth, he was very intelligent, an exceptional genius. He was very good in planning and in politics. He was a very good manager. And Prophet Suleiman, alayhi salatu wassalam, he built Jerusalem, fulfilling the will of his father, Dawood alayhi salatu wassalam. He did that 4 years after taking the kingdom, and he spent lots of money, and he completed it in 7 years. And he built a wall around the city. Adam alayhi salatu wassalam, he was the first one who built al-Masjid al-Aqsa in that land. And Prophet Suleiman alayhi salatu wassalam, he rebuilt whatever was there. He upgraded the town, upgraded the infrastructure. Am I using the right words there? Prophet Suleiman alayhi salatu wassalam, he had great interest in renovating land, construction, and development. And he had a great interest in horses. And he trained them and he prepared them for fighting. وَقَالَ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ عُلِّمْنَا مَنطِقَ الطَّيْرِ. And Solomon said, in mentioning the endowments of his Lord, O people, I have been given the understanding of the utterance of the birds. Allah enabled him to understand the utterance of the birds and of the other animals, not just the birds. And he would speak to them sometimes. وَأُوتِينَا مِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. He said, and we have been given the means to all sorts of things. It means that Allah blessed Suleiman, gave him all sorts of endowments and accommodations, and he gave him access to all sorts of things. He enabled him to do all sorts of things. He gave him everything that is valid and possible in becoming of a prophet and of the people and of the kings. And it was said that Allah Ta'ala gave Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam authority over the earth. That Allah gave him authority over all of the earth. So he was one of the kings of the earth. إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْفَضْلُ الْمُبِينُ. He said, surely this, it is certainly the obvious generosity. That's in Surah An-Naml. Allah told us about the supplication of Prophet Suleiman alayhi salatu wasalam, King Solomon. He said, قَالَ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. My Lord, grant me a kingdom that should not be for anyone after me. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابِ. Surely it is you who is Al-Wahhab, the one who grants gifts to his slaves. So Allah answered his dua. وَالشَّيَاطِينَ كُلَّ بَنَّاءٍ وَغَوَّاصٍ. Allah subjugated the devils for him. Means Allah put the devils under Solomon's control, every builder and diver among those devils. They would dive for him very deep into the sea to pull out the jewels, the gems, and the pearls of the sea. And they would do excruciating labor for him, labor that human beings are unable to do. So they built for him massive palaces, very high pillars. وَمِنَ الْجِنِّ مَنْ يَعْمَلُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. And among the jinn are those who labored in accordance with his command, by the permission of his Lord. وَمَنْ يَزِغْ مِنْهُمْ عَنْ أَمْرِنَا نُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. And any one of them who would deviate from that obedience, Allah would torture him on the spot. And then Allah will make him taste the torture of the inferno in the afterlife. يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ مِن مَّحَارِيبَ وَتَمَاثِيلَ وَجِفَانٍ كَالْجَوَابِ وَقُدُورِ الرَّاسِيَاتِ اعْمَلُوا آلَ دَاوُودَ شُكْرًا وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. They would make for him whatever he wanted of places of worship and statues that wasn't haram in their law. In the law of Muhammad, statues of things that could be alive are forbidden. And reservoirs, that means like lakes or ponds, water places. And firmly fixed cauldrons. Cauldrons are like huge pots. Practice, O family of David, thankfulness to God. Allah says, وَآخَرِينَ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ. And other devils he had together bound in manacles. He had jinn who were chained up, shackled. Those jinn were devils, that's what I know. That means they were kuffar. If we say about jinn, shaitan, that means he's a kafir. And among what they built for him, as it was said, was a great platform made of wood or different types of wood. And it was adorned with gold and silk. And he could fit everything that he needed on this platform. Buildings, tents, equipment, horses, camels, men, and other than that, animals and birds. And if he wanted to go travel, or he wanted to go fight an enemy, wherever he wanted, he would load all those things onto that platform, and then he would command the wind. And the wind would come up underneath of this platform and raise it up until when they get between the earth and the sky, like vertical takeoff, they will go up. Then he would command the wind to be gentle, and then it would become like a breeze, and it would take him where he wanted to go. And if he wanted to go faster, he would command the wind, and the powerful gusts would come, and they would take him faster and put him wherever he wanted to be. Alayhi salatu wassalam. By the will of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So in Arabic they call it bisat. Some people might translate that as carpet. We're not going to translate it as carpet. As it was said, it was made of wood or woods, different types of wood. So someone might call it a platform, but I'm going to call it a base. So Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he had a transportable base. There was a word that I had, mashallah, it slipped me. فسخرنا له الريح تجري بأمره رخاء حيث أصاب. And so Allah subjugated for him the wind, and it flowed by his command, smoothly whenever he wanted. وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحَ غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ. In a single morning, it could take him the distance of a month, and in a single evening, it could take him the distance of a month. That means that Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he was by that wind traveling at jet speed. And among the endowments that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala gave him, وَأَسَلْنَا لَهُ عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ. Allah made flow for him a spring of molten brass or molten copper. And that spring was in Al-Yaman, as it was said. It's called Aynul Qitr. Al-Qitr here is the molten brass or copper. So that used to flow for him, and he would make whatever he wanted without fire. That's Allah's answer to his dua. And that made him a very powerful king. هذا عطاؤنا فامنن أو أمسك بغير حساب. This kingdom and this subjugation of the wind and subjugation of the devils that Allah has given you, that is Allah's gift to you, O Solomon. Now give from it whatever you want, and withhold and keep whatever you want. بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Without any of that counting against you, Ya Sulaiman. Give what you want, withhold what you want, and none of that will count against you. وَإِنَّ لَهُ عِندَنَا لَزُلْفَى وَحُسْنَ مَآبٍ. And surely for him, to Allah, is indeed a special status and a good fate. وَحُشِرَ لِسُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ وَالطَّيْرِ فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. He had a massive army made of humans, jinn, and birds. The first of them were detained until the last caught up, and they were all gathered. And Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he arranged them, he made them into divisions, squadrons, and gave them assignments. And if he went out, his army would go out with him in a big, huge, impressive procession. The humans and jinn would go with him, obeying him. And the birds of all types would be over them, shading them from the sun, shading them from the heat, and shading them from other things. And this army with its divisions, it had its commanders, people of ranks, and it was something that a person would have never seen before. And in the center of this base of his, he had a mimbar, a pulpit, like a place for his own position. It was made of gold. And around him were golden seats for the awliya, the saints. And around them were silver seats for the scholars, the ulama. And around them were the people, and around them were the jinn and the devils. And the birds would be over them, shading them. And Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he used to carry out frequent excursions and invasions, fighting blasphemers and spreading Islam. His headquarters, alayhi salatu wasalam, was the city of Tadmur, which they call in English Palmyra. It is in what is today Syria. The jinn built that city for him, as it was said. He would leave Palmyra in the morning. he would arrive in Istajr in Arabic, which is among the biggest Persian cities. He would arrive there by Dhuhr time. Then he would rest, and then he would go to Kabul. Isn't that the name of that Afghani town, Kabul? He would go there, and he would spend the night, and then in the morning he would go back to Palmyra. حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم, until when they came upon the valley of the ants, a queen ant said, "O ants, enter your dwellings. لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون." Let not Solomon and his army trample you unknowingly. And the wind took this queen ant's talk to Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam. So he heard that and he understood it. فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا مِّن قَوْلِهَا. So he smiled at what she said, because he was happy that Allah enabled him to hear it and understand it. وَقَالَ رَبِّ أَوْزِعْنِي أَنْ أَشْكُرَ نِعْمَتَكَ الَّتِي أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيَّ وَعَلَى وَالِدَيَّ. And he said, "O my Lord, inspire me to appreciate your endowment that you endowed upon me and upon my parents. وَأَنْ أَعْمَلَ صَالِحًا تَرْضَاهُ. And inspire me to do good deeds that you accept. وَأَدْخِلْنِي بِرَحْمَتِكَ فِي عِبَادِكَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And include me by your mercy among your pious slaves." Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala inspired this ant to know his prophet, Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam. So she knew who he was, and she commanded her ants to scatter and to enter into their dwellings. Allah made her know that, know Sulaiman, like he made the ants know many things. They cultivate, they take the seeds, they break them into pieces so that they won't grow, and all sorts of things. And it was reported that Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, he had a meeting with this queen ant, and he asked her about the ants. And she told him the ants are very busy, they are very hard workers, and that sometimes they sprout wings and they go and fly, and then the birds catch them and eat them. And when Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam went on leaving the valley of the ants, Sulaiman and his army came to a barren land. That means there's no water there. And his army became thirsty, so they asked him for water. And among the birds that Sulaiman had alayhi salatu wasalam in his army was the hudhud, which they call the hoopoe bird or the hoopoo bird. What can this bird do? Allah Ta'ala enabled this bird to see water under the ground. So that's how Prophet Sulaiman used to use that bird. So when Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam wanted to employ this bird and its abilities, he looked up and he found that it was not in its place. It broke formation. وَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ, and he was missing a bird. فَقَالَ مَا لِي لَا أَرَى الْهُدْهُدَ مَا لِي لَا أَرَى الْهُدْهُدَ أَمْ كَانَ مِنَ الْغَائِبِينَ. Why don't I see that hoopoe bird? When he realized that that was not the case, that it was just behind something, he said, In fact, it is absent. لأعذبنه عذابا شديدا أو لأذبحنه. I swear I will certainly torture that bird severely or slaughter it. Or else it better come to me with a clear excuse. فَمَكَثَ غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ. And it was absent for but a short time. فَقَالَ أَحَطْتُ بِمَا لَمْ تُحِطْ بِهِ وَجِئْتُكَ مِنْ سَبَإٍ بِنَبَإٍ يَقِينٍ. When it returned to Solomon, and it was said that when it came, at first, it landed not close to Suleiman. And it took a position of extreme humility, like when someone did something that he's not supposed to do, so he's afraid. And then the bird came to Suleiman alayhi salatu wassalam, and it said to him, I have encompassing knowledge of what you have not encompassed. And I come to you from the land of Sheba with verified news. Surely I have encountered a woman ruling over them, and she has been given the means to all sorts of things. That means it's a very powerful kingdom. They have all sorts of resources. وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ. And she has an enormous throne. A throne that is decorated with all sorts of jewels. And it is baffling to the eyes. وَجَدْتُهَا وَقَوْمَهَا يَسْجُدُونَ لِلشَّمْسِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. I found her and her people prostrating to the sun instead of Allah. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ فَصَدَّهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ. And the devil beautified their deeds for them and blocked them from the correct path. فَهُمْ لَا يَهْتَدُونَ. And so they are not guided. أَلَّا يَسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ الَّذِي يُخْرِجُ الْخَبْءَ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. The devil blocked them so that they do not prostrate to Allah, the one who brings out what is concealed in heavens and earth. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تُخْفُونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ. And he knows what you conceal, and he knows what you display. Allah la ilaha illahu. Allah, no one is God but He. Rabbul Arshil Azim. He is the Lord of the grand Arsh, the ceiling of paradise. قال سننظر أصدقت أم كنت من الكاذبين. Solomon said, we shall look and see. Are you truthful, O bird, or are you among the liars? اذهب بكتابي هذا فألقه إليهم. Go, O hoopoe bird, with this message of mine, and deliver it to them. ثم تول عنهم فانظر ماذا يرجعون. Then leave their sights and see how they respond. So the bird took the message of Prophet Suleiman alayhi salatu wassalam and flew all the way back. And he went right to that queen sitting on her throne, and he dropped the message in her lap. She was astonished. So she opened the message and read it, and what she read shook her. So she gathered her counsel. قالت يا أيها الملأ إني ألقي إلي كتاب كريم. The queen said, after the bird delivered the message, O council, surely there has been delivered to me a noble message. إِنَّهُ مِن سُلَيْمَانَ. Surely it is from Solomon. وَإِنَّهُ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. And it surely says, in the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. أَلَّا تَعْلُوا عَلَيَّ وَأْتُونِي مُسْلِمِينَ. Do not be arrogant with me and come to me as Muslims. That's his message. So she understood that. She understood how severe that is. قالت يا أيها الملأ أفتوني في أمري. She said in worry, O council, give me your verdict concerning my issue. ما كنت قاطعة أمرا حتى تشهدون. I was not definitive about a course of action before you testify. So they were proud people and strong people. So they thought, well, who does he think he is? He doesn't know who we are. قالوا نحن أولو قوة وأولو بأس شديد. They said, we are strong people and capable of mighty warfare. And it was said that those people were so strong that they could ride the horse, and when they wanted to make it stop, they grab his whole neck and pull his head back and make the horse stop. وَالْأَمْرُ إِلَيْكِ فَانظُرِي مَاذَا تَأْمُرِينَ. The decision is yours. Just look into what you command us to do. But she knew the potential problem that she might be facing, and she didn't want that problem for her people. She said, قالت إن الملوك إذا دخلوا قرية أفسدوها وجعلوا أعزة أهلها أذلة. Certainly the kings, when they invade a town, they ruin it and leave its nobles humiliated. And Allah says, وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. And that is exactly what they do. وَإِنِّي مُرْسِلَةٌ إِلَيْهِمْ بِهَدِيَّةٍ فَنَاظِرَةٌ بِمَا يَرْجِعُ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. Indeed, I will send to them a gift, and see, with what news shall the messengers return? That is, she thought of a plan, which was, number one, to send Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam very fancy gifts, something that people would be awestruck about. Because if he accepts those gifts, then she knows that he's just a man of the dunya. He wants money, and really, he can be bought. Yani. But if he doesn't accept the gift, despite how precious and fancy it is, then she knows that he really means business. And two, she wanted her people to see his kingdom so that they could report back to her. فَلَمَّا جَاءَ سُلَيْمَانَ. So then when her messenger came to Solomon, he saw a kingdom like nothing he ever beheld. He and whoever went with him, they were astonished at what they saw. And then they offered Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam the gifts. قَالَ أَتُمِدُّونَنِي بِمَالٍ. He said, do you think to bribe me with money? Or to delay me from attacking you by bringing money to me? Or do you think that you are assisting me? فَمَا آتَانِيَ اللَّهُ خَيْرٌ مِّمَّا آتَاكُمْ. What Allah gave me is better than what He gave you. بَلْ أَنْتُمْ بِهَدِيَّتِكُمْ تَفْرَحُونَ. Rather, you are impressed with your own gifts. ارْجِعْ إِلَيْهِمْ. Go back to them with your gift. فَلَنَأْتِيَنَّهُمْ بِجُنُودٍ لا قبل لهم بها. We swear, we shall indeed come to them with an army for which they have no resistance. We will come to you with an army that you have no chance against. وَلَنُخْرِجَنَّهُمْ مِنْهَا أَذِلَّةً وَهُمْ صَاغِرُونَ. And we will drive them out of Sheba humiliated, enslaved, and captured. So then the delegate of Bilqis, they returned to her and they informed her about the news of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and they described to her what they witnessed of the greatness of his kingdom and the great size of his army, and they informed her that he rejected the gifts and that he is determined to invade their lands with a big army that they have no power to resist. So when she heard that, she was sure about how serious he was, and that she would not be able to fight his army and win. So she sent a message to him that I shall come to you so that I may see what it is that you are calling to. And all of that, why is Prophet Sulaiman doing any of that? Isn't it just so that they would embrace Islam? So she had her huge throne locked behind 7 doors, and this throne is bigger than a house. She had it locked behind 7 doors, and she put guards in charge of it. And then she went to go see Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam with her own procession. And Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, he was a man who had a very great deal of respect. He was a person, he had a very strong presence. So frequently, very often, the people would be silent until he speaks or until he asks. So one day, he was sitting upon his throne, and he saw in the distance what looked like a camp or something. So he said, "What is this?" They said to him, "That's Bilqis. She settled in that land. It was as far as a farsakh away. If you want to think about a farsakh like a mile." And Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he knew that she had appointed guards over her throne before she left. And when he knew that she was approaching, he commanded for a castle to be constructed from glass. Very smooth glass. And he had run through the crevices and the runways of this castle water with fish and other types of sea creatures, so that whoever saw that, it looked as if this was, if you want, maybe an aquarium. But the glass is so, I don't know how to describe that glass, such nice smooth glass that it's like the water is there standing by itself. That the water is flowing through walls of glass and floors of glass without the eye perceiving the glass. And Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, قال يا أيها الملأ أيكم يأتيني بعرشها قبل أن يأتوني مسلمين. O council, which of you will bring me her throne before they come to me as Muslims? قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. A powerful type of jinn called Ifrit said, I will bring it to you before you stand up from your session. وَإِنِّي عَلَيْهِ لَقَوِيٌّ أَمِينٌ. and I am certainly strong enough to handle it, and I shall not violate. He said, I need it sooner than that. قال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك. Then that righteous wali that was knowledgeable of the Torah, he was a scholar and a wali. His name was Asif ibn Barkhia. It was said that he is Suleiman's maternal cousin. He said, I can bring it to you before you can shift your vision. So Suleiman, he looked away, and then he looked again, and it was right before his eyes. فَلَمَّا رَآهُ مُسْتَقِرًّا عِندَهُ قَالَ هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ رَبِّي. And when he looked and he saw it present before him, with its huge size and all of its decoration, he said, this is from the generosity of my Lord. لِيَبْلُوَنِي أَأَشْكُرُ أَمْ أَكْفُرُ. By it he tests me. Shall I be grateful or ungrateful? وَمَنْ شَكَرَ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. And whoever is grateful, then he is grateful for his own good. وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ رَبِّي غَنِيٌّ كَرِيمٌ. And whoever is ungrateful, then Allah needs him not. Allah is noble. قَالَ نَكِّرُوا لَهَا عَرْشَهَا نَنْظُرْ أَتَهْتَدِي أَمْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَهْتَدُونَ. He said, alter her throne for her, so that we can see, will she be guided, or will she be among the people who will not be guided? فَلَمَّا جَاءَتْ قِيلَ أَهَكَذَا عَرْشُكَ. So when she came, it was said, is this your throne? قَالَتْ كَأَنَّهُ هُوَ. She said, as if it is. وَأُوتِينَا الْعِلْمَ مِنْ قَبْلِهَا وَكُنَّا مُسْلِمِينَ. Solomon said, we were given the knowledge before this woman, and we were already Muslims. وَصَدَّهَا مَا كَانَتْ تَعْبُدُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And Solomon forbade her from what she used to worship instead of Allah. Or it means, and what she used to worship instead of Allah blocked her, made her misguided. إِنَّهَا كَانَتْ مِنْ قَوْمٍ كَافِرِينَ. Certainly, she was from a blasphemous people, meaning she didn't know the guidance. She grew up in a society of blasphemers, and so she took a religion in accordance with her customs and her society. قِيلَ لَهَا دُخُولِ الصَّرْحِ. It was said to her, enter the castle, this glass castle. فَلَمَّا رَأَتْهُ حَسِبَتْهُ لُجَّةً. And when she saw it, she thought it was pure water. وَكَشَفَتْ عَنْ سَاقَيْهَا. So she exposed her shin, thinking that she was about to step into water. And it was said that when she exposed her shin, he turned away. قال إنه صرح ممرد من قوارير. He said, certainly it is a firm stage made of glass. قالت رب إني ظلمت نفسي. So she realized her misguidance, and she said, my Lord, certainly I have wronged myself by worshiping the sun. وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ سُلَيْمَانَ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And I embraced Islam with Solomon for the sake of Allah, the Lord of the worlds. It was said that Prophet Sulaiman married this woman, and that's not confirmed. It was also said that she was half human and half jinn, and our sheikh says that this is definitively incorrect. He said that humans and jinn cannot make babies together. The humans give birth to live babies, and the jinn lay eggs. So they cannot crossbreed. And he let her control Yemen. He didn't take her out of her place. But she embraced Islam. And it was said that she married him. And it was said that she married someone else. Wallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala a'lam. Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, he would stand in his mihrab, his place of worship. And a plant would grow for him. And then he would ask that plant, "What are you good for?" And then the plant would tell him what it was good for. And then he would have his people take that plant and use it for whatever it was good for, whether medicine or otherwise. So once, when he was in his mihrab, a plant grew. So he said to that plant, "What are you good for?" So that plant said, "I am the destruction of this house." So Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam knew that his death was soon. So he took that and he made a staff from it. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتَ مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ تَأْكُلُ مِنْ سَأَتَهُ. And when Allah ordained Solomon's death, he died while leaning on his staff. The angel of death took his soul while leaning on his staff, because he asked Allah to keep the jinn, the genies, unaware of his death. So he died while standing up, leaning on his staff. And nothing alerted them to his death but a little vermin that nibbled at his staff. فَلَمَّا خَرَّ تَبَيَّنَتِ الْجِنُّ أَن لَّوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ الْغَيْبَ مَا لَبِثُوا فِي الْعَذَابِ الْمُهِينِ. Then, when his body fell to the ground, a year later, it became clear for all of the genies that had they known the unseen, as some of them had believed, some of the jinn believed that there were jinn among them who knew the unseen. So when Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam died and his body fell down to the ground, and then the jinn knew that he was dead, it became clear for all of them that had they known the unseen, they would not have remained in that humiliating torture. Because once they knew that Sulaiman was dead, they scattered.